Saturday the 6th of July will always go down in the memory books of Sean Tarry Racing Stables, Chris van Niekerk and Samanga KHUMALO with the rest of the South African horse racing fraternity as one of the finest days they've ever enjoyed. It was the day that they went to the top of the South African trainers log, and Samanga KHUMALO started off in fine form earlier on in the day on a filly called For the Lads, winning his first Grade 1 race for Trippy. Whilst Trippy stands on Gaynor Rupert's Drakenstein stud, John Costa on the left of your picture with Eric van Niekerk and Chris partially obscured are only too happy to lead in For the Lads as Samanga KHUMALO does a half-hearted Frankie Dettori dismount. And so it was time for the VODACOM Durban July, Africa's most prestigious and history-filled thoroughbred horse race. Pierre Stratum aiming to defend his crown, which he recorded last year on Pomodoro from the deepest of the draw, number 20. But perhaps it was time for the changing of the guard, as the expectant parade ring welcomed Samanga KHUMALO, a man that has had an absolutely phenomenal season, as you will hear during the course of this program. Samanga KHUMALO has a work ethic second to none, and his sincerity, passion and commitment was in evidence for all to see as he walked down the illustrious lane of celebrities prior to walking to the rostrum to join Pierre Stratum. Sean Tarry had 4 runners in the race, but 2 of them top weights, and so to the class of the 2013 VODACOM Durban July Jockeys Field. The tension and excitement is palpable. Nobody ever comes to a VODACOM Durban July without it making a significant impression on your psyche and your sporting experience. At the top of the bookmakers' betting boards, the defending champion Pomodoro, number 1, looked absolutely spectacular. His coat was shining, his demeanor was beautiful, and so too was his stable companion Heavy Metal, who had traveled down from Gauteng. Quite interestingly, Sean Tarry had prepared 3 of his horses down in KwaZulu-Natal, all of Pomodoro, E-Jet, and of course White Line Fever, but Heavy Metal had bigger fish to fry in Gauteng, and his preparation had worked out slightly differently. The massive expectant crowd stood to attention, and before the horses walked into the starting stalls, a first at Greyville Racecourse. Greyville Racecourse paid tribute in a very poignant manner to the greatest statesman that the African continent has ever seen. Prayers, thoughts, and hopes for a recovery of this incomparably brilliant man, Nelson Mandela. Cape Town Noir, the last to load, and Sheldon Peters picks up commentary of the 2013 VODACOM Durban July.
Gates crash back to the roar of the crowd, giving them a chance to settle down. Love Struck's right there. Wagner's in the early stages. Jet Explorer, the white cap. Run for it, the white body. Hill 54, Punta Arena's trying to move around runners. Wiley Hall's in behind these. Pomodoro, E-Jet's on the right-hand side. Seal, Astro News and Wiley Hall. Pomodoro's bustling for an early position. White Line Fever, the yellow caps, only 4 lengths off them. Further back in the running, No Worries and Gothic. They're racing about 13 lengths off them. Astro News just ahead of that group. Wild One, the trailer. Punta Arenas is looking to get closer. They're racing in very tight quarters. Seals on the outside past the 1,000. I can tell you, Run for It's in the box seat. White body and black cap. Then comes Hill 54, Wiley Hall. Pomodoro defending his crown. He's got 6.5 to make up. White Line Fever, do you remember? Heavy Metal, Tribal Dance around them. Coming to the 600, there's a tremor of excitement as Wagner heads the field by 3 parts of a length. E-Jet looks to get going. Punta Arenas. Jet Explorer just bides his time at the rail. Run for It's behind him. Hill 54, Wiley Hall, Pomodoro. Do you remember White Line Fever, Seal, Cape Town Noir? E-Jet, Love Struck looks to get going. Jet Explorer on the inside. Run for It. Do you remember's running on. Punta Arenas, Showgunner, Pomodoro. Wiley Hall starts to unwind. Heavy Metal also gets into it late. Absolute Stampede. Jet Explorer the last 100. it. Heavy Metal gets going. Heavy Metal and run for it. Heavy Metal with his head in front. Heavy Metal won it. Run for it second. Do you remember? No Worries was flying up in the latter stages as they go down to the post.
Having made a conscious decision not to watch one single frame of the race, but rather to watch the expressions of the owners, the trainers, and the connections of these beautiful animals, it gave enormous satisfaction to see the expression on Sean Terry's face, the post-race interviews, and getting out to the front of the track to see Samanga KHUMALO all too eager to burst down the track and to pay tribute to this great thoroughbred, a son of Silvano out of the mare Percussion, beautifully named Heavy Metal. And Samanga KHUMALO, in that inimitable flat and aerodynamic style, passed by in front of the stands, saluting his adoring fans. Now, for those of you who've watched a passionate man watching a horse race, it's almost as good as watching the race yourself. Even better, perhaps. Here's Sean Terry in the closing stages of the 2013 VODACOM Durban July. We all know that anecdotal evaluation is often satisfactory, but seldom complete. And let's just watch Samanga KHUMALO dismount his trusted steed. Now, given that Heavy Metal carried the steadier of 59.5 kilograms, or 134 pounds if you prefer, he was almost the top weight in the race. Now, Michael de Kock, who won the VODACOM Durban July 2 years ago, is one of Sean Terry's mentors. And he invited a gentleman called Patrick Cummings to come to South Africa, who represents an organization called Trackers. This provides instant full-field tracking and automated video indexing.
I've been in South Africa for a week. I feel like I've been here for a month, and that's not in a bad way. It's just that it's been it was the top week to come, I think, to catch everyone together. The established racing fan, while they want this technology, it's not attracting them. They're already attracted. That things like Trackers can engage others to a much greater degree, those that haven't been active participants, or frankly, the tens of thousands, it seemed, that were in the infield at Greyville on Saturday, and the thumping disco and the parties. Look, it was a grand party, but can we get them to come back? Is it more than just that ticket stub that gives you entrance on Gold Cup Day? Can we make them hunters? Can they increase the overall benefit of the sport? And I think that's something that can be done, and I think we're just one part of that. Well, the goal is to take a race course and bring it up to speed. Sectional timing's been present in America for years, but it's only been with one horse, the lead horse. Trackers has moved beyond that now to put tags on every horse, sectional times for every horse, ground coverage information for every horse, so that now it's no longer a guesswork if you traveled 3 wide the trip and were beaten 2 lengths. Maybe that 2 lengths, or maybe rather that 3 wide the trip equated to an extra 17 meters of coverage around that long sweeping Greyville turn that it surprised me in its enormity from Durban July Day, because it was the first time I'd ever seen it. Well, 17 meters equates to roughly 6.5 lengths. If a horse is covering 6.5 lengths more, but was only beaten 2, that right there is giving us a normalization attempt to bring and bridge the gap between conjecture, anecdote, and the fact of the situation. And that's really what Trackers is doing.